Hey guys, in today's video, I bring you a chilling story that will challenge everything you believe. Let's meet Dawson Adler, a war veteran who literally died and came back with a shocking revelation about Jesus and God, something that religions have hidden for centuries. What he discovered on the other side will completely change his outlook on life and spirituality. So before we start, leave a like, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any content like this, and activate the bell to receive all notifications. Now, get ready for a transformative journey that will leave you speechless. My name is Dawson Adler, and I never imagined I would be here telling this story. I am a war veteran, having served my country for years in conflicts I prefer not to name. War leaves marks on all of us, but some are invisible to the eye. In my case, exposure to chemicals during my service left me with a series of health problems that followed me for years after I returned home. I grew up in a small Midwestern town where faith was as common as corn in the fields. I was raised in a traditional Christian family, attending church every Sunday and learning about a God who, I confess, always seemed somewhat distant and harsh to me. This image of God became even more clouded during my years in the Army, where I saw things that no human being should see. When I returned home, I was no longer the same man who left. The war experiences, combined with the health problems I developed, made me question everything I believed in. My faith, which had never been unshakable, now seemed like a distant memory of a life that was no longer mine. The years that followed were a constant battle. I battled illnesses that doctors could barely name, much less treat. Every day was a new war, no longer against a visible enemy, but against my own body that seemed to be betraying me. It was in this context that I arrived on that night in January 2017, a night that would change everything I thought I knew about life, death, and what comes after. That night, lying in a hospital bed, with monitors beeping around me and tubes coming out of my body, I knew the end was near. I could feel death approaching, not as a threat, but almost as a release. For the first time in years, I found myself doing something I had long abandoned. I prayed. It was not an eloquent prayer or full of promises. It was a simple request that, if God existed, He would take me away from all that pain. Little did I know that this simple, desperate request would be the beginning of a journey that would challenge everything I believed I knew about existence, about God, and about the purpose of life. What happened next is something I still struggle to put into words, but I'll try to share it as best I can. Prepare yourself for a story that, I know, may seem unbelievable, but I can assure you that every word is true, at least as true as my limited human understanding can express. It all started with a sigh. One last breath, to be more precise. I remember closing my eyes, feeling the weight of my body sink into the hospital mattress. The sound of the heart monitors, which had previously been irritating and constant, began to fade away, as if someone were turning down the volume on an old radio. It was at that moment that I realized something extraordinary was happening. Suddenly, I felt an indescribable lightness. It was as if all the weight of my existence, the physical pain, the emotional scars, the regrets, all of it simply lifted away. I opened my eyes, or at least I thought I had, and found myself floating above my own body. There was no fear. There was no panic. Just a feeling of peace and curiosity. I looked down and saw my body limp on the bed. Doctors and nurses rushed around me, their voices muffled as if they were speaking underwater. I wanted to tell them that I was fine, that they didn't need to worry, but I realized that I no longer had a voice, at least not in the physical sense. It was then that I noticed the tunnel. It wasn't like the movies or stories I had ever heard. It wasn't a bright, welcoming tunnel. It was dark, almost like a vortex of shadows. But, strangely, I didn't feel scared. There was a pull, a silent call that pulled me toward it. I began to move toward the tunnel, not of my own volition, but as if I was being gently guided by an invisible force. As I entered the tunnel, a feeling of love and peace enveloped me. It was as if every cell of my being, if I even had cells left, was being bathed in pure comfort and acceptance. However, as I progressed, I realized that I was not alone in that space between worlds. There was a presence, something I couldn't see but I could feel. At first I thought it was part of that feeling of love that enveloped me, but I soon realized it was something different, something darker. It was a malicious presence, subtly but undeniably there. She was not aggressive or threatening in any obvious way. Instead, she was seductive, tempting. It offered an alternative to the tunnel, absolute emptiness. It promised the end of all suffering, of all consciousness. It was the temptation of non-being, of eternal oblivion. For a moment, I hesitated. After years of pain and struggle, the idea of simply ceasing to exist had its appeal. It would be so easy to give in, let myself be absorbed by that emptiness and forget everything, the wars, the illnesses, the disappointments. But something inside me resisted. At that crucial moment, I had to make a choice. It was the first great test of this journey beyond life, succumb to the void or continue towards the unknown. It wasn't a conscious decision. There was no logical thought process. It was more of an impulse, a primordial instinct of self-preservation, not of the body, but of the soul. I chose to move forward. I rejected the emptiness and surrendered to the flow of the tunnel. The moment I made that choice, the evil presence disappeared, as if it had never existed. The love and peace I felt before intensified, wrapping around me like a warm blanket on a cold night. The tunnel began to lighten. The darkness gave way to a soft glow, which became more and more intense. I was moving towards something great, something that would forever change my understanding of existence. As the tunnel opened, I was flooded with a light so bright that, in life, it would have blinded me instantly. But there, in that state, the light didn't hurt. On the contrary, it was comforting, welcoming. It was as if each photon of that light carried with it a message of unconditional love and acceptance. As I approached the source of this light, I began to understand that I was looking at something truly divine. It was not just a light in the physical sense but a living, conscious, and infinitely loving presence. It was God, but not the God I knew from Scripture or Sunday sermons. It was something so much bigger, so much deeper, and infinitely more loving than any human description could capture. At that moment, all the preconceived notions I had about God, about religion, and about existence itself simply dissolved. What I was experiencing went far beyond any doctrine or religious teaching. It was a truth so pure and overwhelming that it made all theological complexities seem childish in comparison. The divine presence was not an anthropomorphic figure sitting on a heavenly throne. I was not a harsh judge ready to weigh my actions. It was pure love, pure consciousness, pure existence. It was everything, and at the same time, it was the essence of all things. I felt completely exposed before this presence, but there was no shame. There was no fear. Every part of my being, every action in my life, every thought I ever had was naked before this light, and yet, I felt completely accepted and loved. It was at that moment that I truly understood the meaning of unconditional love. It wasn't just a pretty concept or an ideal to be achieved. It was the very essence of the divine, the fundamental force that holds the universe together. This love did not judge, did not condemn, did not demand anything in return. It simply was, in its absolute perfection. As I merged with this light, I began to experience an expansion of consciousness that defies description. It was as if every cell of my being was opening to absorb the knowledge of the universe. I understood, in an instant, cosmic secrets that Earth's greatest scientists and philosophers spent millennia trying to decipher. I saw the interconnectedness of all things, from the smallest atom to the largest galaxy. I understood that the separation we experience on Earth is just an illusion, a temporary veil that prevents us from seeing the fundamental unity of all existence. Every living being, every particle of matter, every thought and emotion, everything was part of an intricate and beautiful cosmic fabric. In this light, time did not exist as we know it. Past, present, and future merged into an eternal now. I saw the story of creation unfold before my eyes, not as a series of linear events, but as a complex symphony where each note played simultaneously. The most surprising thing of all was that, even in the face of this vastness of knowledge and awareness, I did not feel diminished or insignificant. On the contrary, I felt like an integral part of this magnificent whole. My existence, with all its joys and sorrows, victories and failures, was a unique and precious expression of the divine. As I was immersed in this light, a profound truth crystallized within my being. The fundamental purpose of existence is to love and be loved. Not the romantic or family love that we know on earth, but a cosmic, universal love that transcends all human barriers and definitions. There, bathed in this divine light, I felt complete for the first time in my life. All the pain, all the trauma, all the doubts simply dissolved. I was home, truly home, and part of me never wanted to leave. While I was immersed in that divine light, something extraordinary began to happen to my consciousness. It was as if the limitations of my human brain had been removed, and my mind could now expand to encompass all the knowledge of the universe. Information began to flow to me at an unimaginable speed. These were not just isolated facts or bits of information, but deep, interconnected understandings about the nature of reality. It was as if I could see and understand the fundamental patterns that form the fabric of the cosmos. I saw Earth's history unfold before me, not as a linear sequence of events, but as a complex tapestry where each thread represented a life, an event, a decision. I could see how every action, no matter how small, had repercussions that stretched across time and space, affecting countless other lives. I understood the mysteries of physics that scientists on Earth still struggle to decipher. I saw the dance of subatomic particles, understood the nature of time and space, and realized that the reality we think of as solid and unchanging is actually fluid and malleable, responding to our thoughts and intentions in ways we have barely begun to understand. But it wasn't just scientific knowledge that flowed to me. I experienced a profound understanding of the nature of consciousness. I saw that what we call self is just the tip of the iceberg of who we really are. Our true nature is vast, multidimensional, and intrinsically connected with the entire universe. I understood that life and death are not opposites, but parts of a continuous cycle of existence. Death, I realized, is not an end, but a transition, a change of state. Consciousness does not cease with the death of the physical body. It simply changes form, returning to its expansive, universal nature. One of the most profound revelations was about the nature of time. On Earth, we experience time as a linear progression from past to future. But in that expanded state, I saw that all moments exist simultaneously. Past, present, and future are illusions created by our limited perception. In fact, everything is happening now, in an eternal present. I also understood the true nature of free will and destiny. I saw that each decision we make creates a new branch of possibilities, a new universe of potential. At the same time, I understood that there is a greater flow, a cosmic purpose that guides our individual journeys towards a greater goal that we can barely comprehend in our human form. One of the most surprising insights was about the nature of love. On Earth, we tend to think of love as an emotion, something we feel for certain people or things. But in that expanded state, I understood that love is the very force that holds the universe together. It is the fundamental principle of existence, the energy that flows through everything and connects all things. I saw that every living being, every particle of matter in the universe, is a unique expression of this cosmic love. I understood that the fundamental purpose of our existence is to experience and express this love in infinitely varied ways. In this state of expanded consciousness, I also understood the true nature of evil and suffering. I saw that what we perceive as evil or pain on Earth is, in reality, a manifestation of misalignment with this force of universal love. Suffering, I realized, often serves as a catalyst for the growth and evolution of consciousness. One of the most impactful revelations was about the nature of God. I realized that what we call God is not an entity separate from us, but the totality of all existence, including ourselves. Each of us is a unique expression of this divine consciousness, temporarily forgetful of our true nature while experiencing human life. I also understood why we forget our true nature at birth. This veil of oblivion is essential so that we can have authentic experiences and make genuine choices on Earth, thus contributing to the expansion and evolution of universal consciousness. I saw the interconnectedness of all religions and spiritual philosophies. I understood that each of them captures a facet of universal truth, but none encompasses it completely. I realized that differences between religions are often the result of limited human interpretations of transcendental experiences similar to the one I was having. In this state, I had access to knowledge and memories from past lives. I saw that reincarnation is not a linear process, but a multi-dimensional exploration of possibilities. Each life is an opportunity for learning and growth, contributing to the evolution of collective consciousness. I understood the crucial role Earth plays in the grand cosmic scheme. Our planet is not just a piece of rock floating in space, but a living, conscious being, a school for evolving souls. Every challenge we face on Earth, personal or collective, is a carefully designed opportunity for our spiritual growth. Expanding my consciousness also allowed me to understand the nature of thoughts and emotions. I saw that they are forms of energy that shape our reality in much deeper ways than we imagine. I understood the true power of intention and belief in creating our life experience. As I absorbed all this knowledge, I felt a deep sense of humility and gratitude. I realized that despite this expansion of consciousness, I was still only scratching the surface of the infinite knowledge and wisdom of the universe. It was in this moment of profound revelation that I felt a presence approaching. It was not just any presence, but one that emanated a love and wisdom that felt familiar, yet infinitely more vast than I had ever experienced. I was about to have an encounter that would forever change my understanding of the nature of Jesus and the purpose of his message. While I was still absorbing the immensity of the revelations I had just received, I noticed a presence approaching. It was different from the divine light that surrounded me, more focused and, in some ways, more human. As this presence became clearer, I was overcome with a sense of recognition and awe. It was Jesus, but not the Jesus I knew from paintings on church walls or from preachers' descriptions. The being before me radiated such deep love and intense compassion that I felt completely exposed and at the same time, completely accepted. His eyes, if I can call them that in that non-physical state, seemed to contain all the wisdom of the universe. His smile conveyed a peace that went beyond any human understanding. There were no words in the sense we know. Communication happened on a deeper level, as a direct exchange of thoughts and emotions. Jesus began to show me aspects of his life and ministry that I had never considered before. I saw that the historical Jesus was very different from the figure that many religions portray. He was not the harsh judge ready to condemn sinners, nor the suffering martyr that many worship. What I saw was a teacher of unconditional love, a spiritual revolutionary who came to challenge the power structures and limited interpretations of spirituality of his time. Jesus showed me that his message had often been misinterpreted and distorted over the centuries. He did not come to found a new religion or to be worshipped as a distant icon. Its purpose was to awaken people to their own innate divinity, to remind them of their direct connection to the divine. I understood that the kingdom of heaven that Jesus spoke of was not a physical place or an after-death state, but a state of consciousness accessible to everyone here and now. It was the state of union with the divine that I was experiencing at that moment. Jesus showed me that his teachings on love and forgiveness were not mere moral guidelines, but keys to the transformation of consciousness. The love he preached was not the romantic or familial love we know, but a universal, unconditional love that makes no distinctions and has the power to heal and transform. I saw that the miracles attributed to Jesus were not violations of natural laws, but demonstrations of the power of expanded consciousness over physical reality. He was showing the latent potential in every human being. Jesus revealed to me that his crucifixion was not a sacrifice to appease an angry God, as many interpret. It was a demonstration of the power of unconditional love over hate and fear, a lesson in forgiveness and transcendence that continues to reverberate through the centuries. I understood that true sin was not a list of moral transgressions, but the state of separation from our true divine nature. The salvation Jesus offered was not a ticket to post-mortem heaven, but an awakening to our true identity as expressions of the divine. Jesus showed me that all religions, including Christianity, are just different paths to the same universal truth. He did not come to be the only way, but to be a living example of the divine potential in every human being. I understood that Jesus' resurrection was not just a physical event, but a demonstration of the eternal nature of consciousness. He was showing that death, as we understand it, is an illusion, and that our true nature is immortal and indestructible. Jesus revealed to me that his return, long awaited by many, would not be an apocalyptic physical event, but a collective awakening of humanity to its true divine nature. It was an invitation for each of us to resurrect into a new way of being and perceiving reality. In this encounter, Jesus did not present himself as an external savior, but as an older brother, a loving guide who came to remind us of who we really are. He showed me that true faith is not blindly believing in doctrines, but trusting in the divine love that permeates all existence. As I absorbed these revelations, I felt my understanding of spirituality, religion, and the purpose of life expand enormously. I realized that I had spent much of my life following rules and doctrines without really understanding their deeper meaning. Jesus then invited me to look at my own life with new eyes. He gently guided me into a life review that would forever change my perspective on my actions, choices, and the impact I had on the world around me. Guided by the loving presence of Jesus, I began to experience a complete overhaul of my life. It wasn't like watching a movie or flipping through a photo album. It was much deeper and more comprehensive. I was not just seeing the events of my life, but living them again, experiencing each moment with a clarity and understanding I had never had before. The most surprising thing was that it wasn't just limited to my own perspective. I could feel and understand the thoughts, emotions, and motivations of everyone involved in each situation. It was as if I could, for the first time, see the complete picture of every moment of my life. We started with my childhood. I relived moments of joy and innocence, but I also experienced again the first emotional wounds, the moments of rejection or misunderstanding that shaped my personality. For the first time, I was able to see how my parents, even when they made mistakes, were doing the best they could with the knowledge and emotional resources they had at the time. Fast forward to my adolescence and young adulthood, I saw the choices I made, the opportunities I seized, and those I let pass by. I experienced again the confusion and rebellion of those years, but now I could see how each experience, even the painful ones, contributed to my growth. We then come to my years in the Army. I relived the moments of camaraderie, the sense of purpose, but also the horror of war. I saw the lives I took in combat, and for the first time, I could feel the pain of the families of those I called enemies. There was no judgment in this review, just a deep understanding of the complexities of the human condition and the consequences of our actions. The hardest part was reliving the years after I returned from the war. I saw how my trauma and pain affected not just me, but everyone around me. I experienced again the frustration and despair I felt fighting illnesses that doctors barely understood, but I could also see how this struggle made me stronger and more compassionate. Throughout this review, there was no conviction, not from Jesus, not from the divine presence that surrounded us, not from myself. There was just a deep understanding and acceptance. I understood that every choice I made, every action I took, was the best I could do with the awareness and knowledge I had at that moment. What impressed me most was seeing the impact my actions had on the lives of others. I saw how a simple act of kindness I performed that I had long forgotten had a profound effect on someone's life, creating a chain reaction of positivity. Likewise, I saw how harsh words spoken in moments of anger or frustration hurt people in ways I had never realized. Jesus showed me that what we call sins are actually moments when we act out of fear, ignorance, or pain rather than acting out of love. He made me understand that true repentance is not beating ourselves up over the past, but learning from our experiences and choosing to act with more love and awareness in the future. One of the most profound revelations was seeing how every event in my life, even the most painful and difficult ones, has served a greater purpose. Every challenge, every loss, every moment of despair was an opportunity for growth, a chance to develop more compassion, more strength, more wisdom. I saw that the people who hurt me the most in life were, in fact, my greatest teachers. They provided me with the experiences necessary for my spiritual growth. Likewise, I understood that the people I had hurt were having their own experiences of growth through their interactions with me. At the end of this review, I felt deep gratitude for every moment of my life, both the good and the bad. I understood that there are no wrong experiences, only opportunities for learning and evolution. I felt at peace with my past in a way I had never experienced before. Jesus then showed me something surprising, glimpses of past lives and potential future lives. I understood that each life is like a chapter in a much larger book, each offering new opportunities for learning and growth. I saw that some of the people who were important in my current life had played different roles in other incarnations, always helping each other on our evolutionary journey. This life review made me truly understand the power of forgiveness, not just forgiving others, but also myself. I realized that forgiveness is not something we do for others, but a gift we give ourselves, freeing ourselves from the weight of resentment and guilt. At the end of this experience, I felt profoundly transformed. I had a new perspective on my life, my relationships, and my purpose. I was ready for the next revelation that Jesus had to share with me, a secret that would forever change my understanding of the purpose of his mission on earth. After the intense life review experience, I felt that Jesus had something more to reveal to me. His presence became even more focused, and I realized I was about to receive information of profound importance. Jesus began to share with me what I can only describe as his secret, a fundamental truth about his mission that had been misunderstood or lost over the centuries. Jesus showed me that his true purpose in coming to earth was not to establish a new religion or to be worshipped as a divine being separate from humanity. His goal was much more revolutionary and universal. He came to awaken humanity to its true divine nature. He made me understand that when he said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life," he was not referring to himself as a historical individual, but to the divine I am, present in every human being. His invitation was not to follow him as an external leader, but to recognize and manifest the same Christ consciousness that he exemplified. Jesus revealed to me that his teachings have often been misinterpreted and distorted over time. He did not come to create a spiritual hierarchy or an exclusionary belief system. On the contrary, he came to eliminate the barriers between the human and the divine, to show that the kingdom of heaven is not a distant place, but a state of consciousness accessible to everyone, here and now. The secret Jesus shared with me was that each human being is, in essence, a unique expression of the divine, just as he was. The difference is that Jesus was fully aware of this truth, while most of us live in a state of obliviousness to our true nature. He showed me that his miracles were not supernatural acts performed by a special being, but demonstrations of the potential inherent in every human being when awakened to their true nature. When he healed the sick or raised the dead, he was actually activating the power of healing and renewal that exists within each of us. Jesus made me understand that his crucifixion and resurrection were not events designed to create a cult of worship around him. They were, in fact, a powerful metaphor and demonstration of the process of ego death and spiritual rebirth that every human being is called to experience. He explained that when he talked about being born again, he was not referring to an external religious conversion, but an internal awakening to our true identity as spiritual beings having a temporary human experience. Jesus' secret included the revelation that the concept of sin was misunderstood. He showed me that the true meaning of the Greek word translated sin was simply to miss the mark. These were not moral transgressions that make us unworthy in the eyes of a judgmental God, but rather times when we acted out of alignment with our true divine nature. Jesus made me see that his call to repentance was not a call for self-punishment or penance, but an invitation to change our mindset, to awaken to a higher consciousness. He revealed that when he talked about being the Son of God, he was not claiming a unique and unattainable status, but demonstrating the potential of every human being. We are all sons and daughters of the divine, with the same potential to manifest the Christ consciousness that he manifested. Jesus showed me that his promise of eternal life was not just about an afterlife existence, but about the realization of our eternal, indestructible nature here and now. The salvation he offered was not a rescue from a realm of eternal damnation, but an awakening from the dream of separation and limitation. The secret included understanding that our final judgment is not a future event where some are saved and others are damned, but the ongoing moment of choice that each of us faces, choosing love or fear, union or separation, truth or illusion. Jesus made me understand that when he talked about loving your enemies, he was not just preaching high ethics, but revealing a fundamental truth about the nature of reality, that we are all one, and that love is the force that unites all humanity, existence. He showed me that his promise of return was not about a physical second coming, but about the awakening of Christ consciousness in every human being. The end times he prophesied are not a physical apocalypse, but the end of the age of unconsciousness and the beginning of a new age of collective enlightenment. Jesus' secret was, in essence, that we should not worship him as an external savior, but recognize and manifest the same divine consciousness that he exemplified. His invitation was not to create more religious divisions, but to transcend all divisions and recognize our fundamental unity with all life. As I absorbed these profound revelations, I felt my understanding of spirituality, religion, and the purpose of life expand enormously. I realized that I had spent much of my life following rules and doctrines without really understanding their deeper meaning. Jesus then looked at me with infinite love and compassion, and I realized that he was about to present me with a choice, a decision that would change the course of my existence. After sharing his secret with me, Jesus looked at me with an expression of infinite love and said, "Now, my dear brother, you have a choice to make." At that moment, I felt the weight and importance of this decision. I could choose to remain in this state of expanded consciousness, immersed in divine love and universal understanding, or I could choose to return to my earthly life. The choice was not as simple as it might seem. Part of me longed to be in that state of bliss, free from the pains and limitations of physical existence. The peace and love I experienced there were indescribable, and the thought of leaving them behind was almost unbearable. On the other hand, I now had a new understanding of the purpose of life on earth. I saw clearly how each experience, each challenge, each relationship offered unique opportunities for spiritual growth and evolution. He understood that earthly life, with all its difficulties, was a precious school for the soul. Jesus, sensing my hesitation, gently reminded me, "Remember, the choice is yours. There is no wrong decision here. If you choose to stay, you will be welcomed and loved. If you choose to return, you will have the opportunity to share what you have learned and help others on their awakening journey." As I pondered, Jesus showed me glimpses of what could happen if I chose to return. I saw how my experience could touch and transform the lives of many people. I saw myself sharing these truths with others, helping them awaken to their own divine nature. I saw the potential for healing and transformation that my return could bring, not just to myself, but to everyone around me. At the same time, I was reminded of the difficulties I would face. I saw that my body would still be sick and that the recovery process would be long and challenging. I saw that not everyone would understand or easily accept what I had to share. I saw that there would be moments of doubt, of loneliness, of struggle. Jesus assured me, "If you choose to return, you will not be alone. The connection you experienced here will always be available to you, even if you don't always see it clearly. You will have the opportunity to be a beacon of light to others, reminding them of your true nature." At that moment, I felt a wave of compassion for all humanity. I remembered my loved ones, all those who were struggling and suffering, searching for answers and meaning. I realized that I had been given a precious gift, an understanding that could help alleviate suffering and bring light to many. With a mix of determination and apprehension, I made my choice. "I want to go back," he said. "I want to share what I've learned. I want to help others awaken to this truth." Jesus smiled with approval and love. "Your decision is courageous and compassionate. Always remember what you experienced here. Even in the most difficult times, know that divine love is always with you, that you are eternally loved, and that your true nature is light." Before I prepared to return, Jesus gave me 3 instructions. First, pray more. Not as a request to an external being, but as a way to reconnect with your true divine nature and the universal wisdom that is always available to you. Second, accept suffering with joy. Not because suffering is good in itself, but because every challenge is an opportunity for growth, for practicing love and compassion, for remembering and manifesting your true nature. Third, spread divine love. Not through preaching or doctrines, but through your actions, your presence, your being. Be a living example of the unconditional love you experienced here. With those words, I felt myself being gently pulled back. The light began to dim, and I felt my consciousness contracting. I was returning to my body, to my earthly life, but now with a new purpose, a new understanding, and a new connection with the divine. The process of returning to my body was an experience in itself. As my consciousness began to contract, I felt like I was diving back into an ocean of physical sensations. At first, it was disorienting and a little scary. After the expansion and freedom I had experienced, returning to the confines of a physical body felt claustrophobic. The first thing I noticed was the pain. My body, which had been at peace during my spiritual journey, was now screaming with all the sensations that had been temporarily silenced. Every nerve felt like it was on fire, brutally reminding me of the conditions that led to this near-death experience in the first place. Slowly, I began to become aware of the sounds around me, the rhythmic beeping of hospital machines, muffled voices of doctors and nurses, the hissing sound of oxygen being pumped into my lungs. Everything seemed distant at first, like I was listening through a thick wall. Then, suddenly, everything became clear. I opened my eyes and the hospital's fluorescent light momentarily blinded me. I blinked several times, trying to adjust. I saw faces looking at me, doctors, nurses, all with expressions of shock and relief. "He's back," I heard someone scream. "It's a miracle." I tried to speak, but my throat was dry and irritated from the breathing tube. A nurse gently stopped me from trying to remove the tubes and wires connected to my body. "Calm down, Mr. Adler," she said softly. "You've been through a lot. You need to rest now." Little by little, I found myself back in physical reality. Doctors informed me that I had been clinically dead for 10 minutes. They had done everything they could and were about to declare him dead when, inexplicably, my heart started beating again and I started breathing on my own. In the days that followed, I underwent a series of exams and tests. The doctors were perplexed by my recovery. Not only had I survived prolonged cardiac arrest, but my body seemed to be healing at a remarkable speed. Conditions that once seemed chronic and intractable began to show signs of improvement, but the most significant change wasn't physical, it was internal. Despite the pain and physical discomfort, I felt deeply at peace. The anxiety and fear that had been my constant companions for so many years seemed to be gone. In its place was a sense of purpose and a deep connection to something greater. Remembering all the details of my experience was a challenge. It was like trying to hold water in my hands. The harder I tried to hold on to the memories, the more they seemed to slip away. But the essence remained with me. The unconditional love I had experienced, the truths I had understood, the purpose I had discovered. As I recovered, I began to notice subtle changes in how I perceived the world around me. Colors seemed more vibrant, sounds richer. I could feel a connection to the people around me in a way I had never experienced before. It was as if I could see past their physical appearances, straight into their souls. Sharing my experience with others was a challenge. How can you put something so vast and profound into words? How to explain concepts that challenged our common understanding of reality? Many were skeptical, others fascinated. Some looked at me as if I had lost my sanity, while others seemed to see something different in my eyes, something that made them want to know more. Doctors, of course, had their own explanations. They talked about hallucinations caused by a lack of oxygen to the brain, about the effects of medications on my system. But I knew, deep down in my being, that what I had experienced was real, more real than anything I had ever experienced. As I grew physically stronger, I began to feel a calling to share what I had learned. Not in a dogmatic or religious way, but simply sharing the love and understanding he had received. I began to see every interaction, every relationship, as an opportunity to manifest this divine love I had experienced. My perspective on life and death had completely changed. Death was no longer something to be feared, but simply a transition. Life, on the other hand, gained a new meaning and purpose. Every moment became precious, an opportunity to grow, to love, to awaken. As I prepared to leave the hospital and face the world again, I knew nothing would be the same. I had died and been reborn, not just physically, but spiritually. And now, with this new life, I had a mission: to live and share the truths I had discovered, one day at a time. As I left the hospital, I realized I was entering a world that was both familiar and completely new. The streets, the houses, the people, everything looked the same from the outside, but my perception had changed drastically. Each person I saw was no longer just a stranger, but a unique expression of the divine, a soul on their own journey of discovery and growth. My physical recovery continued at home, but was accompanied by a profound inner transformation. The 3 instructions that Jesus had given me became the pillars of my new life. First, pray more. But prayer took on a new meaning for me. It was no longer a ritual of asking things from a distant being, but an act of reconnection with my own divine nature. I began taking time each day to simply sit in silence, allowing myself to feel again that connection to the whole that I experienced during my near-death experience. Sometimes it was a fleeting sensation, other times it was an overwhelming wave of love and understanding, but I always remembered who I really was beyond this physical body. Second, accept suffering with joy. This did not mean that I sought suffering or that I did not try to improve my situation. But when physical or emotional pain arose, I saw it with new eyes. Every discomfort, every challenge, became an opportunity to practice love and compassion, to remember my true nature beyond physical limitations. I found that when I embraced suffering rather than resisting it, it became a teacher, revealing new insights and strengthening my connection to the divine. Third, propagate divine love. This became my main mission, the purpose that gave meaning to each day. But it wasn't about preaching or converting others to a new belief. It was about living the love I had experienced, letting it flow through me in every interaction, every gesture, every word. I started small, with my family and close friends. Many have noticed the change in me, a new peace, an openness, a depth that wasn't there before. Some were curious and asked questions. Others seemed a little uncomfortable with the change, as if they didn't know how to relate to this new me. Gradually, I started sharing my story with a wider circle. I was invited to speak at support groups for veterans, at churches, at community centers. I always tried to be honest about my experience, acknowledging that it was difficult to explain or prove, but offering it as a perspective that could bring comfort and hope. What surprised me was how people responded. Many times after sharing my story, people would come up to me privately, with tears in their eyes, to share their own spiritual experiences that they had never felt safe sharing before. I realized there was a deep hunger for this kind of spiritual connection, a need to discuss questions of life and death, of purpose and meaning, that often found no space in our materially focused society. Of course, not all reactions were positive. I encountered skepticism, sometimes open hostility. Some accused me of abandoning my traditional faith. others of making up stories for attention. I learned not to defend myself, not to argue. Instead, I tried to respond with the same unconditional love I had experienced, understanding that each person was on their own journey of understanding. One of the greatest joys I discovered was helping people overcome their fear of death. Sharing my experience of peace and love beyond physical life brought comfort to many who were facing terminal illnesses or who had lost loved ones. Seeing the relief in their eyes, the relaxation in their bodies as they understood that death was not the end but a transition, was deeply gratifying. At the same time, I discovered a new appreciation for life. Each day became precious, an opportunity to experience divine love in physical forms. I began to notice the beauty in things that previously went unnoticed: a stranger's smile, a bird's song, the warmth of the sun on my skin. Every moment became a chance to practice presence, to be fully alive. My relationship with nature also deepened. I began to see every tree, every animal, every river as expressions of the same divine love that I had experienced. I developed a sense of responsibility towards the planet, seeing it not as a resource to be exploited, but as a living being of which we are part. Over time, I started writing about my experiences and insights, not with the aim of convincing anyone, but to offer a different perspective, one that could bring hope and comfort. To my surprise, the book found a receptive audience, taking my message far beyond what I could personally achieve. But the deepest aspect of my new life mission wasn't in the lectures, the books, or even the one-on-one conversations. I was in the daily practice of living from that place of unconditional love. It was a constant challenge. There were days when old ways of thinking and acting resurfaced, when fear or anger threatened to overshadow what I had learned. In these moments, I was reminded of Jesus' words, "Always remember what you have experienced here." Even in the most difficult times, know that divine love is always with you, that you are eternally loved, and that your true nature is light. And so, day after day, I continued my journey, not as someone who had all the answers, but as a fellow traveler, sharing what he had learned and continuing to learn from each person he met. My mission in life has become simply this: to be a living reminder of the divine love that exists within each of us, inviting others to awaken to their own inner light. Looking back on that night in the hospital when my heart stopped, I see that it was the true beginning of my life. Death taught me how to truly live. And now each day is a new opportunity to delve deeper into this mystery, to love more fully, to be more fully who I really am. My journey continues, and I am eternally grateful for every moment of it, because now I know that every breath, every heartbeat, is a miracle and a gift. And my mission is to live each moment with gratitude, love, and an awareness of the eternal truth that unites us all. If you like this beautiful spiritual testimony, leave a like, comment on your impressions, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to activate the notification bell to watch each new video and help us spread this message to a greater number of people. Until next time.